Blessings and welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. Today we are in Psalms and our chapter reads verse 16, 17, and 18. And like always, I hope you got a chance to read ahead. I would really love to hear what your law enforcement takeaways are. And if you're really interested in the law enforcement takeaways that I got from this, email me, chuck@fcpo.org. because there are so many today. I've got 3 pages of notes here, and there's no way I'll ever get to them, especially if I keep talking. So let's get into 16, verse 2. Law Enforcement 101. There were 2 big takeaways from this that would just go into an investigator school, much less a scriptural or spiritual understanding of how we are to do our job well. But verse 2 talks about culpable mental states. It's so cool. And then if I can find it, 18, verse 17, investigator tip. And everybody knows this, but a good investigator gets involved, gets all sides of the story, not just the first account that comes in. You know, the first person that says, hey, my neighbor stole something. And then you get in to investigating and you find out the neighbor says, well, I stole that because he owed me money for pot that I sold him. You know how this goes, but just some really good investigator 101 things that are coming from the Bible that teach us how to do our job well. Most of the takeaways are also things that teach us how to do our job well, but they basically go to our character and how we treat other people, how we leave them with dignity. We do our job. We enforce the law and we uphold justice, and we do all those things, but we do it in a way that reflects God. I digress. Verse 3, commit your works to the Lord and your plans will be established. Wouldn't that be cool if when you graduate from police academy that the chief or whoever the commissioner gets up and they read this verse and they commission all of your works as a law enforcement officer to God to maintain His justice. You could write a police academy training manual just out of Proverbs, and then if you went to Psalms, you could write volume 2 or 3 or 4. But just know how cool these are and how God just blesses us with these. Verse 11 of chapter 16, justice belongs to God. This is foundational in everything that we do. A just balance and scales belong to the Lord. All the weights of the bars are His concern. His concern. A just balance and scales belong to the Lord. This is justice. It belongs to the Lord. So when we find ourselves doing injustice or writing a ticket maybe where we shouldn't, or we may have given compassion, or just whatever the case may be, we've got to recognize that He is the ultimate authority and He will judge us for the way that we judge others. Very important, especially in my spiritual life. It's important in my physical life and my job, but it's so much more important to me in my spiritual life. Chapter 16, verse 32, slow to anger is a character trait of God. So if it's a character trait of His and I'm to reflect Him, it should be a character trait of mine. So I want to be slow to anger. I want to be self-controlled. Being self-controlled gives you more strength than the mighty man. Being controlled and thinking cognitively and tactically of, keep your mind open, what's going on here. Don't get tunnel visioned and focused. Just a really cool thought. Chapter 17, verse 11. The law enforcement officer must keep him or herself away from all forms of rebellion. And we don't hear enough about this or talk enough about this, but all rebellion is sin. That's how Adam and Eve got this whole thing started. They rebelled against God because they wanted to be like God. And in law enforcement, we don't talk about rebellion within the ranks. But when you despise a supervisor or you get corrected and you haven't learned in Proverbs yet that correction and accepting correction is wisdom and understanding, maybe you haven't got to that point yet, and so you despise the one who corrected you. you're in a form of rebellion. If you have officers that are in rebellion, stay away from them. Rebellion is never good. Um, so this verse speaks directly to that. 17:11, going to 17:12 or 17:20. It says, "He who is perverted in his language falls into evil." Perverted language leads us down a wrong path. So stay away from it. Stay away from those who just every word out of their mouth is angry and hateful and filthy. We've got to be better than that. We are a reflection of God. You wouldn't expect to see Jesus say these things. And you can talk to somebody without speaking their language. I heard that growing up in law enforcement, that if you really want to connect with these people, you have to speak to them the way that they expect to be treated. Speak to them the way they expect to be spoken to. That's not true. It's the same. Last I checked, filthy speech was not a different language. It's just a filthy part of language, and it's not acceptable. If you don't believe me, or you disagree with that, you're not disagreeing with me, you're disagreeing with God's word. It says it. So I personally take it very serious. Quickly, no, not quickly, I don't have time. 1817, 1823 just goes on and on with these incredible principles for us as law enforcement officers. So, man, as you're reading the Bible, have a piece of paper with you, take some notes, look back on these things. They're awesome. So, anyway, tomorrow we're reading out of Proverbs 19 through 21. Read ahead. I look forward to seeing you, and you guys be safe.